Hey everybody, today we're going to be taking a look at the new update for DungeonDraft that includes custom asset support. Everything that you see in this map right here is a custom asset. They're all coming from Mike Schley's SchleyScapes. Now Mike Schley makes actual art for D&D official campaign adventures, which is super cool that we can use as assets in our own game. And anyway, everything in this map comes from that, whether that's the background terrain, these embellishments, these trees, these rocks, this well, the walls, and the doors. They're all coming from custom assets. And today we're going to take a look at how to take existing art that we already have, whether that's from 2-Minute Tabletop, Forgotten Adventures, Mike Schley, or anybody else, stuff that you've already made and you've just been adding in Photoshop or wherever. We're going to take a look at how to get that into DungeonDraft. And the first thing that we are actually going to have to do is close DungeonDraft. And behind that, we'll see that I've already got my DungeonDraft custom assets folder open and the asset pack that I used to create that map. And we're just going to go ahead and delete it. And we're going to hopefully recreate it and have the map reopened at the end of this video. To get started, we actually have to go ahead and reopen DungeonDraft, and once that opens, we'll be able to define the folder where we want to store all of our custom assets. So we're going to go up to the main menu where we have this new assets option, and you can see that I already have my assets folder defined, but if we click browse, I'd recommend keeping it somewhere in your documents in a DungeonDraft custom assets folder, but you can keep it wherever you want. I already have this selected, so I'll leave that. Down here in this pack version author section is where we'll have access to control which packs we're loading when we create a new map once we have multiple asset packs installed. But for now, we can go ahead and click accept, click menu, and then we see that we also have this package custom assets option. So if we click on that, we get a little message about how to prepare the pack folder and all that stuff. We can click through for a step-by-step guide that details what each aspect of a custom asset is, like what's necessary for walls, what's necessary for tile sets, and that kind of thing. That comes directly from Megasploot. And then we can also get access to this example template, and we're going to go ahead and click that open and pull it over, and we'll see that in our program files in the DungeonDraft folder, we have this compressed example template, and we're going to click into that. And let me bring up my DungeonDraft custom assets folder. And we're going to extract the example in there so that we can follow along with it as we start importing assets. Now let's take a quick look just to see what's in here before we get started on our own. So first we have the parent folder, which is example, and inside we have data, texture, and preview. Preview is an icon that you can use for displaying your custom asset pack. And then in textures, we have lights, materials, objects, paths, portals, terrain, tile sets, and walls. And in most of these, if you click in, you'll see that it's just storing images and is pretty simple. But some of them, like tile sets, actually have multiple folders within them. They have simple, smart, and smart double. And you can go back over here to click on this step-by-step guide to find out what the difference is between all of them. But if you're just bringing in art from creators that weren't designing specifically for DungeonDraft, the likelihood of them having a smart or a smart double asset is very low. So I'm going to say that we're pretty much just going to focus on this simple folder. And now we can click back up to the root parent folder and then click into data to see what's in here. And you'll see that we've got tile sets, and inside we have tile set simple, smart, and smart double, which lines up perfectly with the assets in the tile sets folder in the textures folder. So if we go back up, we'll also see that walls are in here, and then we can also define default.dungeondraft_tags. And this file is going to give us access to giving tags and categories for each one of the assets that we're creating. Now, if we go ahead and come back up to our root DungeonDraft custom assets folder, we can create our asset pack. But before we do that, I'm actually going to recommend that we create a new folder, and I'm going to call this source sets. And the reason why I'm going to put this in here is that I want to have access to a copy of all of the assets that I'm working with outside of an asset pack in case I want to change something, in case I want to remove something, if I want to refer just specifically to an image. If I don't include everything, I still want to be able to get to them. And that brings us to actually opening up the folder where all of our assets are. I have this SchleyScapes PNG suite _set1 folder over here that gives me access to all the different file formats that I got when I made this purchase. And I want the highest resolution version of all of the files so that I can make sure that I've got a lot of legroom in terms of shrinking and expanding the image once I've got it into DungeonDraft. So I'm going to grab the PNG files underscore for printing 300 ppi, and that should be plenty. And we can see that I've got all of the files in here. And so I am just going to create another subfolder that I'm going to call SchleyScapes, and I am going to copy and paste all of these files in here just so that I've got access to them later if I need them. And now that we've gotten that taken care of, we can actually come back up to our DungeonDraft custom assets and we can start creating our asset pack. So to do that, we're going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this Schley underscore assets. And I'd recommend keeping this all lowercase and using underscores because that's what the example file does. I'm not sure if it's actually necessary, but it's always best to follow what the example is. So we're going to click into Schley assets, and let me bring over our example folder so we can take a look at what was inside immediately. And inside immediately was the data, textures, and preview image. So we're going to right click, create a data folder, and right click and create a textures folder. And we're going to get started in the textures folder with something nice and simple, the objects folder. So let me get this back out of the way. I'm going to create a new folder and call it objects, all lowercase. And I'm going to grab these first several tiles in here, or not tiles, art pieces, and paste them in. And actually I meant to put them in objects, so we'll get that in there. And these next several are walls, so we're not interested in that. These are portals, we're not interested in bringing that in immediately. And then I believe from here on out, the rest of these are all objects except for the last few. So I'm going to scroll down and do a shift select so that I've got access to everything, copy and paste it into the objects folder. And I have skipped these last three. These two are going to be terrain, and this one is going to be a tile set. But for now, we've got objects, and that's actually all that we have to do for objects. So let's go back up to our textures folder, and let's take a look at terrain, actually. Terrain makes sense, so let's do a new folder and call it terrain. We'll pop in, and we're going to grab these two terrain assets and paste them in, and that should be good. And that's actually all you have to do for terrain. So we've got two easy ones down. Let's take a look at a slightly more complicated one, a tile set. Now tile sets are slightly more complicated, but they start just as simply as the other one. So we're going to do a new folder and we're going to call it tile sets. And we're going to jump in and we're going to make a copy of our wood tile and we're going to place it in there. Now that part was the same as we've done before, but if we come back up to our root folder where we see the data folder and the textures folder, and then we compare it to the example folder, we know that inside of data there was a tile sets folder. So let's do the same thing here and then jump inside for both of them, and we'll see that we have tile set simple, tile set smart, and tile set smart double dot DungeonDraft underscore tile set. We only need to copy over the file that we're actually adding a tile set for, and since we're only doing tile set simple, we're going to paste that over here, and we're going to skip smart and smart double for now, since we're not actually bringing any assets that have those functionality anyway. So now all you need access to is a text editor, and I'm going to pop up Notepad because I imagine that's something that almost everybody has access to. I'm just going to drag it in, and we'll see that we have this opening curly bracket and this closing curly bracket, a path, name, type, and color field. Now the path refers to where the asset is actually located, and it's going to start based on the root folder. So that's saying we're going to look inside of textures here, and then inside of textures, we're going to look inside of tile sets. Inside of tile sets, we're going to look for simple, and we actually didn't make the simple folder in here. This is why it's good to double check these things. So we're going to create the simple folder now, and we're going to place that tile set inside. So it's currently going to be looking for tileset simple.png, but we're not going to, oh, where did I go? There we go. We're just going to leave it with this name and then paste that in there so that it will look for the correct file in the tile sets. And we're going to select the name, which is Schley wood floor, but you could name it anything that you wanted. And then there's two types, and that's custom color and normal. A custom color tile set is one like the fancy castle tiles where a color can shine through in an exposed diamond or something like that. Since this shouldn't have any colorability on it, we're just going to change it to normal, and we can leave the rest as it is. Now, if you have multiple tile sets that you're adding, multiple simple tile sets at least, for this file, you can always just copy everything that you have here, place a comma after this curly bracket, hit enter, paste again, and enter the next name for your tile set. And you can do the same thing in the other two types of tile sets, just in their respective files. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this now because we only have the one. We're going to hit save, and then we can close that, and we should have updated our tile set folder. And then if we come into data tile sets, we'll see that we have that in there as well, and we should be good with our tile sets. Now that we have our tile sets taken care of, let's take a look at another slightly weird one, and that's going to be walls. So we're just going to create a new folder and title it walls, and then we're going to scroll all the way back up to where our walls were, and walls have to be going from left to right, and you want a long repeating pattern for them. And thankfully there is one of those in this asset pack. If there wasn't, I could rotate one of these and use it that way, but I've already got this one here, so I'm going to copy it, paste it into the wall section. And there's actually one additional thing that you need with walls, and that's why I have Affinity Photo down here, and going to bring this up. You can use Photoshop, or you could even probably get away with using Paint or something like that for this. But I'm going to drag this in to open it, and walls have to have a end piece that can be attached to the end. And the easiest way that I've found to do that is to open it up in an editor so that you make sure that you have the exact height that you want, so it will match the wall piece. And then I found that if you just crop down to just that final piece over here, and then use something like an eyedropper tool, or with this, you can pretty much just see that it's black. We can switch over to black. I'll use a brush and, change the brush, change that, there we go. And you just have to fill in a tiny sliver piece that can be the ending of the wall if it's not attached to another piece of a wall. So I pretty much just fill that in with a little bit of black, but if your wall should end in a different color, you can go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to do a Control-Shift-S so that I can get to my export settings. This I know has the right height because I pulled in the wall itself and just cropped it down to here. So this is all good. I'm going to hit export, and that actually already has pulled me into my DungeonDraft custom assets, Schley assets, textures, walls folder. You do need to add one additional thing to the file name though, and that is _END for end. Save that in the same file with your wall with the exact same name, just appending the _end at the end. And then we can go ahead and minimize this and take a look at the next piece, which is in the data folder. So if we come over to data, we can create a new folder called walls, and then we'll bring over our examples. We'll go back up to data, into walls, and we'll see that there's this sample wall.dungeondraft_wall file. Now, if we go back over here to textures and into walls, we'll see that we have sample wall. So the data file in here needs to have the same name as the wall that you are adding. So we're going to go into data, type in walls, and go back to our textures, back to walls, and we're going to grab the full name of that wall file, go back to Schley assets, into data, and then into walls, and we're going to open up our trusty notepad once again, and first paste in the name of our wall. So we've got that. Pull that in here, and we'll see that just like before, we have this path and color option, and it's going to be looking inside of textures, walls, and then for sample wall, but it's not called sample wall. We're going to paste in our name here as well and hit save. Now, walls all have colorability options that you can't really stop like you can with tile sets. But if you come in and enter FF, that's the hex code for white. It should hopefully have a little bit less of an impact than if you made it yellow or red or green or something like that. But if you want to do a color sample of whatever the main color in your wall is and enter that here, that would work just as well. So we can hit save, close, and we should have our data file for our metadata file for our walls taken care of. We can come back to data, back to Schley assets, and then into textures. And currently we have our objects, we have terrain, we have tile sets, and we have walls. The last thing we have left is portals. And we can start exactly the same way as we did with all of the others with portals. We'll create a new folder in our textures folder called portals. Jump on in, and then we can come back into our assets. We'll scroll down and find the portal that we want to use. Let's do this one. This one looks good. So we're going to do that, and actually we're going to need to go back into our photo editor, jump back into my portals, and I'll open up this in a new window. And the reason for this is that portals, generally speaking, can only be 256 pixels wide. So what we're going to want to do is resize it. Now in Affinity Photo, if you had this lock set, it will keep the ratio of width to height as you reduce size. You'll definitely want that regardless of what editor you're using. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It will resize the height automatically for me. I've got a 256 pixel wide portal. I can go ahead and hit export, jump out of walls, jump into portals, and I'm just going to save on top of this and replace it. Then I can minimize this, and that should be just about everything that we need to do for portals. Hey everybody, this is just another drop-in piece that's coming in after I rendered the video. I realized I hadn't covered lights, materials, or paths, and there's a reason for that. I don't think any currently existing asset packs are going to have lights or materials. They might have something for paths, but I didn't have anything in my current asset pack that I'm working with. But I figured I would go ahead and show it just in case anyway, using some of the assets, the example assets from the example zip, and also one thing from SchleyScapes. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is lights, and if we open this up, we can see that it's a PNG, and it's a simple gradient of white going out to black in a circular fashion. That's pretty much all that you have to do. The whiter points are where light is going to shine through, and the black points are places where light will not shine through. So you can make this in any editing program that you want, and that's pretty much all that you have to do for lights. There's no special metadata file required for them. We'll go back out to textures and take a look at materials, and this is using the example acid tile and the example acid border, and the acid tile centerpiece has to tile left, right, and top down and everything like that. And then you have to have a border element that can be applied to the outer edge of the material, and you can see the naming scheme right here, which is acid tile and acid border. And so, you know, main centerpiece name underscore tile, border, the main name underscore border. That's all you have to do. And then we'll quickly come back out here and do new folder and pull in a paths folder. And I don't have anything that would really work that well as a path, but I do have another long piece of wall that I can copy in here and paste. And so long as your asset tiles left to right repeatedly, this should work. And there's one recommendation from Megasploit that you have a pixel of transparency on the top and the bottom of the asset just to prevent floating point artifacts, which is definitely something that I knew what it was before I read his post. Anyway, this has just been a quick drop-in bit. It probably won't make an appearance at the end of the video, but I tested it and everything does work with this addition to the other things that we've made and are going to make. So feel free to keep going. Bye. With portals taken care of, we can get to the final aspect, which is actually packaging up our directory so that we can use it as an asset or as an asset pack. So let's come back here to DungeonDraft, where we still have open our package custom assets window, but if you don't, that's up here in menu, package custom assets, and then we can find our base folder. And to do that, it's automatically taking me to Schley assets, which is the asset pack that I was working on originally. But you can jump back up and see your other options if you want to. We're going to stay in Schley asset pack or Schley assets, hit select folder. We're going to give it a name, which is Schley assets. And then we're going to leave it at version 1. And you don't have to enter in author name, but I'm going to, which is encounter library. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit package. And unless you're working with an awful lot of assets, it should be able to do it almost immediately. And we see asset pack Schley assets has finished packing and been moved to yada, yada, yada. Enable your pack in the assets window. And we're going to want to do that. We can't just go ahead and create a new map or try to open an existing map without, with custom assets without coming into assets and enabling our custom assets. And here you'll see multiple different packs once those are available, but for now we've just got ours and we can hit accept. And let's go ahead and do a new map just to see if this causes any issues with DungeonDraft, and it didn't. It looks like everything's working well so far. So let's open up a design tool. We've got Schley wood floor, and I think I actually accidentally set it with a color originally, so that's my bad. Let me change that to white, and we'll come down to this custom wall here and just drag it out and see that we've got that. Everything's looking good. We have our custom terrain down here, and it's probably worth renaming these so that we can have a better naming scheme, but we can fill in our terrain as expected. We can come to our object tool, check everything out by scrolling down to the very bottom where all of our assets are going to appear, and we see that we've got all these trees, these boxes, and all of this good stuff. And it looks like everything's here. It looks like we can place things. We can come over here to the scatter tool if we want. We can select a whole bunch of things and start placing them randomly around the map. That's a great looking encounter right there. And that should be just about everything. But before we close out, we're going to take one last look at an element of asset packs, which is tagging, and then we're going to try to reopen our map. Wardrobe change. So actually, after rendering the video, I realized that there was a better way to do one of the things that I showed you, which was tagging objects, and I'm going to go through that right now, and then I'm going to have a jacket back on again. Okay, so if we come back into our textures folder and go into our objects folder, we can copy this whole path and on Windows do something pretty cool. And there might be a way to do this on Mac OS and Linux as well. I would be surprised if there wasn't, but since DungeonDraft isn't currently supported on those platforms, I don't know what it is, but I might look into it and post it in the description or pin a comment if somebody knows how to do it in the comments below. But we're going to open up the command prompt. You can just do start and start typing command prompt. I'm not going to have you do anything crazy or scary or complicated or anything like that. We're just going to do cd, which is change directory, and we're going to paste in the path that we just copied from our File Explorer window over there. We're going to hit enter. That'll bring us to this folder in the command prompt, and we're going to type dir, which is just short for directory, and /b, and then the greater than sign, another space, and then objects.txt. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to run a command called directory, and it's going to do some fancy stuff with it, and then it's going to put the results of that fancy stuff into the objects.txt file, and we'll see what's in there right now. So if we hit enter, we can see that an objects.txt file pops up over here. That's just a basic text file. We can open it up, and it has every file in this folder cleanly written out for us, plus the objects.txt file, which we can actually go ahead and get rid of. And this will save us a huge amount of time in terms of having to get rid of things. And the next cool thing is that we can easily here in Notepad come up and actually we'll just do it as a Control F. I think no, I guess not. What is it? I think it's Control H. Yeah, in Notepad it's Control H for find and replace. So if we take the string that appears, or this little prefix at the beginning of each file name, SS001, and I would recommend giving all of your object assets some kind of prefix just as a good differentiation from other asset packs and stuff when you're storing things in mixed folders. We can do find what SS001, and we're going to replace it with quotation mark SS001, and then we can do replace all, and we'll have the quotation mark that we need at the beginning of every file name there. And since all of our object assets are .png files, we can do the same thing with the end there, change it to find what png, and replace it with .png quotation mark and a comma, and we'll do replace all, and then we can close out of this, and we have all of our files exactly how we need them. Easy peasy. We can copy it. We'll save it just for now, and we can come up to the main Schley assets folder. We can come into data, and we'll bring over our, where is it? Our example data folder. And actually I'll copy this, which means I'll have to go back to that text file in a second and paste that over here, get this out of the way, and we're going to pop open Notepad, a fresh Notepad, paste this in just so that we can see what's in it. We have tags and sets, and for tags we have my tag and also colorable, but since we don't have any colorable objects, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that in there and empty it out. And if we wanted to have multiple tags, we could easily just come up, copy this, paste it, and tab that in, make it my other tag, link to some additional different objects that we've got in here, and split them up into just their respective tags. But we're just going to stick with a simple custom asset tag for our specific asset pack, and we're going to call it Schley. And we're going to get rid of the object links in here and come back to our objects.txt file that we created, and we're going to copy that and paste it in here, and we just saved ourselves a whole bunch of time having to manually enter this into this tag. And then one of the cool things with DungeonDraft is that you also have sets, which are collections of different tags. So for sets, it's currently set to be titled example set. We're going to change it to be Schley assets, and then you hand it a list of tags that should be included inside of this set. And currently we just have the Schley tag, but if we had others, we could put a comma at the end, tab in, and do Schley alternates, quotation mark, and end it with a comma or not. But if you're ever going to do more, you always want to have a comma at the end. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of this, hit save, and our basic tagging system should be ready, and we can get ready to load it as an asset in, or we can get ready to start creating an asset pack in DungeonDraft. Now to get it loaded in DungeonDraft, we're going to have to open it up, and we're actually going to have to close it first because we have this file open that's using our current asset pack that we don't want it to be using anymore because we won't be able to overwrite it. So we're going to close this, hit discard, and we're going to come back up to our root folder here, and we're actually going to go one farther up, and we're going to delete our Schley assets.dungeondraft_pack file, and we should be good now to open up DungeonDraft. And now that that's open, and we have our original asset pack deleted, we can come into menu, we can go to package custom assets, we can browse to the root folder, which is our Schley assets folder here. We're going to hit select folder. We're going to give it the same name that we gave it previously. And we can call this version 1.1 author encounter library and hit package. That should create it. We can go ahead and hit assets, check mark on Schley assets, and then come up here and go to open. I'm not going to do it through the menu actually. I'm going to do it here, hit open, and oh, actually I have to hit open, don't I? There we go. And we've got our map open. So we were able to successfully recreate the asset map or the asset pack that I had created originally to build this map, and we were able to update it to version 1.1 with new default tags and everything like that. And let's go ahead and take a look in the object setting over here, what that looks like. So we can come to tags and find that we have SchleyScapes, and it will open up all of our assets over here that we defined. And we've got access to all of these now. And we can also, if we're in this, if we want to have access to all of our Schley, but maybe also all of our ship, we can do a shift select to have both open, and we can have our custom assets intermixed with our actual DungeonDraft assets, and we can start pulling them out into our maps. So that's everything that you need to know to get custom assets imported to DungeonDraft. I hope that in the comments you're going to share all of the artists that you're hoping to pull in, 2-minute tabletop, everybody. Post your own assets, all that good stuff. Share them on cartographyassets.com, and hopefully we can build out as extensive of a library for DungeonDraft as we possibly can. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.